Welcome, I'm Don Ney. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it very much. It's been an exciting day today. I've been out knocking on some doors earlier, and when I say knocking on doors, that means I literally am in the street talking to people like a realtor would do, so to speak, except I'm not a realtor in any way, shape, or form of the word. What I am is a house buyer, a principal, a guy coming there to say, listen, I'm not interested in a commission. I'm interested in buying your property, solving your problems, and by that action, hopefully I make a profit. You know what that does? It keeps things what we call stress-free. How many guys would like to be stress-free? How many people, raise your hand, it's okay. How many of you would like to say, look, I own property that I bought without going to a bank to get permission, and it produces a positive cash flow, stress-free? Of course you'd love to say that, and so do I, and I am saying that. It doesn't mean it's perfect every time, but almost, and that's what makes this part of the life and this part of our business so fun. Listen, I deal with motivated sellers. Did you hear that clearly? Motivated sellers. I do not deal with skeptical bankers. And the reason I say that is skeptical bankers, they like to lend money and they like to say what you're doing can't be done. They like to say, look man, whatever you're doing, I can't do. This is the way we do it. Because they live in this little box about that big, about the size of your head. Skeptical bankers. Let me give you something that happened. I had a guy call me up and he said, hey, got a little mailer. I do a lot of mailing, and that's part of our deal. And he says, I want to talk to you about buying my house. And I says, great. Is this a house you live in? And he said, no. I said, oh, it's not. He goes, no. I said, someone living there now? And he said, no. I said, oh, well, then you're not collecting any rent. And he said, no. And I says, wow, all these no's are making me worried. It might not even be a house I'm interested in. He goes, well, why not? And I says, well, it's not making you money, it's not rented, and it's empty, and no one lives in it, but it's your house. And he goes, yes. And I says, well, what do you do? He goes, I'm a banker. When I hear that, I go, okay. Sometimes there are little red flags there, and I go, oh, okay. Turns out, he is a top-level banker with a national big bank, and he's in the know. This is a man in the know. And so I figured, well, he's in the know, maybe I need to know some things. I said, well, let me ask you something. He goes, yes. I said, well, we'll go meet at your house. He goes, oh, you don't want this house. It's too much money. I want all cash. I love it when they say I want all cash, because that means nothing. It's just a pile of money they're going to go do something else with. And that just means whatever they're going to do, maybe I want to do. Because if you want my pile of cash and you're going to go put it somewhere else versus this house, wherever you're going with it might be better than what I'm doing. And maybe I want to know what you're doing because I'll take my money and go over there. Skip the house. Boy, that sure sets them back a little bit. Remember that line. Well, what are you doing with the money once I give it to you? I might want to do that. Well, that's none of your business is what they tell me. And I always say, of course it's my business. It's my money. Then here's what happens. The banker says, meet me at the house. I meet him at the house. Beautiful home, big, giant home, overpriced for what we do, over $500,000. But I still wanted to see it, and I wanted to see the banker, and I want to see the competition. I want to see what's out. I never say no. I always say yes, and no can come later. Yes first. So I meet the banker there. I go see the house. I walk all through it and look it over. And while I'm walking through it, I'm talking to him. I said, wow, this is a grand place. Where do you live? He goes, oh, I live over there in that high end of the neighborhood. He had a very nice luxury house a few blocks away. I said, well, how'd you come up with this house? He goes, oh, I was helping somebody out. Oh, so a banker was helping somebody out and ended up with a $500,000 plus house. I said, wow, this is pretty nice. And he says, yes. And I said, well, tell me about it. And he said, well, my friend bought this house and I made the loan for him. And I said, oh, really? He goes, well, my bank made the loan. I said, oh, yeah. He goes, back in 2005. Now you guys all know in 2005 the market's up here. It's actually out of the picture where I am sitting now. It's way up there, in what they call the bubble stage. And shortly thereafter the market's way down here. We're trying to get it back up to here. Well, as it turns out, he said, I made the loan through my bank to this borrower because I knew him. And then when the market crashed, he got into a problem and couldn't pay, so unfortunately I had to foreclose on the property. Well, I didn't. He goes, the bank had to foreclose on the property. I says, oh, I understand. He goes, it went to trustee sale. I says, oh, great, so somebody bought it or you lend on it again? He goes, nobody bought it. It went back to the bank because nobody bought it at the trustee sale, which happens a lot because they're grossly overpriced. Well, that becomes a bank REO. And I said, oh, well, that's okay. Well, how'd you end up with it? He goes, well, it became a bank REO. And then I took a look at it and kind of thought it was good. And I said, really? He said, yes. I said, well, so you bought it? He goes, yeah, so I bought it from the bank. And I says, oh, well, good for you. I'm hoping it works out well. He goes, oh, yeah, it'll work out well. It'll work out real well. But I can see you're not real interested in it. I said, no, I'm not very interested in it. And so we talked a minute, exchanged cards, shook hands, and said our paths will cross again. That's the end of the story. Then I get to my office. I gave one of my staff members the address, and I said, I got a weird feeling about this whole conversation I had with this top-level banker from this national bank who's trying to sell me a house that he has bought as an REO from his bank. And they said, okay, well, great. What do you want me to do? I said, just run me a search on it. Tell me the history of it. And we have access to that information through our own resources. Turns out there was a huge loan on the property, $800,000 loan that his bank made to his friend. The friend didn't pay on the loan. The loan went into foreclosure, went back to the bank for $800,000, went to a trustee sale for $800,000 because that's what was owed. Nobody bought it. House ain't worth it. The house wasn't worth it. And he went back to the bank. I looked it up and said, well, what did the banker buy it for? Well, they put it on the market for $600,000 for a quick bank sale. And it was a short sale approved by the vice president of this bank, who is the buyer of the short sale, for $200,000. Yeah, it does happen. You guys all know this happens in the banking industry, right? You see why I don't have a lot of confidence in that direction and why I really strive to get no interest. I don't want to be pessimistic about it, but come on, man, I live in the real world. I don't live in the pie-in-the-sky television news and the seminar trade. What I live in is the real world. I'm talking to people who are really out there, busting their knuckles. We talked about that in earlier videos. And I said, wait a minute. This guy made a loan for $800,000, put it on the market for $600,000 after foreclosure. He bought it himself at an approved short sale by his bank that he's the vice president of for $200,000 and had it back on the market to sell it to me for $500. That's what I call insider trading. Run! Don't deal with those kind of opportunities. They'll get you in trouble. They'll get you in a lawsuit. You don't want that kind of stuff. Did the banker do anything wrong? I don't know. Does it smell like there's something not right there? Yeah, it doesn't smell right. Does that mean that I couldn't come in there and do that same deal and buy it from him and negotiate and say, I'll give you $300,000? Sure, I could do all those things. But look, we're talking about potentially a person who's taking advantage of his position of authority in a position of a lender who has inside information on properties that they shouldn't be exposed to personally. But you know what? The real world is that's how it works. They do, and they have. I personally do not buy those properties. I personally do not want to deal with bankers who are able to make their own deal because of the inside relationship they have with the bank. I buy bank-owned homes. I've got friends that are asset managers. I've developed relationships with people that control millions and millions of dollars worth of properties that they want me to buy. That's not a problem. But you clearly understand the difference of how that transaction evolved to how I am going to be the new buyer of it. I look at it and say, somewhere in this picture, it doesn't feel right. My sixth sense went off, and therefore, run. I don't want to buy that house. I want to be maintained as a person who is doing good business. I do private financing. I want it to be stress-free. I want it to be from motivated sellers who have a reason why they got to get to the next stage. That's got a problem I can solve. That generally has nothing to do with the economics involved in the house itself. In fact, my desire is only to find out what it is that they have that needs to be fixed that has absolutely nothing to do with the house itself. And when you find that element, the house becomes yours. Thanks for listening. I'm Don Day.